Hey, friends, welcome back to the show. And today we're getting into something that I think a lot of us feel, but don't always want to talk about. You're showing up, you're putting in the work, you're doing all the things, but it feels like nothing's working. You're not seeing the numbers move, the engagement feels flat, the sales are pouring in, and you're thinking, what's the point? But what if I told you you are making progress? What if I told you that just because you can't see the win doesn't mean that it's not there? I know. Another happy go lucky Callie trying to make me feel like I'm still making progress. But the truth is, you are. So today we're talking all about invisible wins. This is the kind of progress that doesn't get loud on Instagram, but it matters so deeply behind the scenes. And we're going to walk through how to recognize them, how to track them, and how to celebrate them, even when things feel slow. Let's get into it. Ever wonder what it really takes to build a business and a life that feels like yours? Welcome to That Big CEO Energy. I'm Callie, entrepreneur, operations whiz, and your go-to for the real, raw, and unfiltered side of business and life. Because let's be honest, entrepreneurship isn't just about strategy and success. It's about figuring out who you are in the messy middle, trying new things, well, just because you can, and creating a life that actually fits you. From solo deep dives to candid convos with powerhouse business owners, we're talking all about the highs and the lows and the why did no one warn me about this moments that come while chasing big dreams. So let's get uncomfortable, embrace the chaos, and make it happen. So why do we even miss these wins? Let's be real. The online business world is so obsessed with loud success, right? Like 6 figures in 6 months, we're booked out, 10K followers overnight. Woo! It's always like big numbers, big launches, big energy. And when we're not seeing that kind of explosive growth in our businesses, it's really easy to feel like we're doing something wrong, right? It's also easy to feel like our business isn't growing and that we're stuck. But here's the truth. Most of your growth doesn't start with numbers, and we all know this. It starts in the dark, quietly, internally, privately. I'm just going to think about a plant. You don't see the roots forming, right? But they're essential. Like they are essential to the growth of the plant. It's the foundation. That's what keeps like the thing alive when the weather changes. And in business, the same thing is true. You might be building better systems. You might be becoming more confident. You might be gaining clarity on what you don't want to do or who you don't want to work with. And you might be slowly attracting the right kind of audience, even if the numbers aren't skyrocketing yet. And I'll say this over and over again. I would rather have 600 engaged people than 600,000 people that don't see one piece of what I'm putting on the internet. Wouldn't you? Like, so because these things don't have a flashy dollar sign or they're not a public metric attached to them, we don't count them, do we? Like, we don't go out and say on Instagram, oh, look at me, I'm building better systems, I'm becoming more confident, I'm gaining all this clarity. That's not a thing that we share. So we ignore these wins, and then we wonder why we're losing. Let's name the invisible wins. Because I feel like once you see them, you can't unsee them. And my hope is that you will be able to look at the inside of your business and say, like, yeah, dang it, I'm winning. So here's 7 types of invisible wins that might be happening in your business right now, even if you didn't realize it. Are you ready? The first one is going to be my favorite, systems and automations. Maybe you finally set up your onboarding workflow. You guys, I spent so many hours last night moving my website over and everything else in my business over to Go High Level, not a plug. But I'm like, I have got to get in one system. And it is accommodating for everything that I need to do it. But do you want to know how many weeks it was on the back burner? And it's so funny because the other day I was talking to my friend Sarah and I said, I am a do as I say, not as I do person. I will set up the back end of your business. I will give you lots of good tools and we will have you automated, but you better not be looking at mine. So I finally got it set up and I'm like, that is a huge win for me. And so maybe you also created a template for proposals. Like, how many hours do you spend inside of Canva or on Microsoft Word creating a proposal that is like not the same? And it doesn't have to be the same, but I'm telling you that if you set up a template for proposals that's easy to tweak, you won't always feel like you're doing so much manual work every single time, right? Like, oh, no, thank you. And maybe you set up automations. Finally, you got it on the back end and you're like, okay, what is all of this about? How can I make my life easier? And maybe that saved you 5 hours a week. You guys, these might not be making you money right now. I get it, but those systems, they protect your time. And your time is where your revenue comes from. Your time is where your revenue comes from. So number 2, clarity and boundaries. Maybe you said no to a client that just didn't align or was giving you a complete headache. That's huge. Again, your time is your revenue. You don't choose to chase a trend, right? Like when you see it online, it's like, oh, everybody's proclaiming that they made X amount of dollars, and maybe you did too. But it's such a trendy thing to say. Let's not. Why are we telling everybody how much money we made in a year? That's a scarcity tactic that just blows my mind. And maybe you chose to set better work hours. I just had a client the other day that was just like, she about lost her mind. She's like, I feel so discombobulated. Like I can't get it together. And so we talked a little bit about how on these days we can put some structure back into our week, even though we left a 9 to 5, right? We left a 9 to 5 not to have so much structure, but sometimes we need structure. Sometimes we need the railways. We need the boundaries, right? Any of these say no to a client, didn't choose to chase a trend on social media and set better work hours. These decisions, like they don't earn applause. Nobody comes to you and says, oh my gosh, so good for you that you put time on your calendar that you were supposed to be doing in the first place, right? Like nobody says that, but they create the kind of business you actually want to wake up to. Number 1 was systems and automations. Number 2 was clarity and boundaries. Number 3 is confidence and resilience, which is another invisible win. Maybe you went live for the first time on Instagram. Maybe you put your podcast out on YouTube. Maybe you pitched yourself for a podcast, right? And then maybe you handled some negative feedback without super spiraling. Like maybe you took the constructive criticism and you're like, yeah, yes. And then maybe you saw a comment on Instagram on one of your things that you were like, yeah, no, I don't subscribe to this person. Absolutely not. We're moving on. Right? That's growth. That is CEO level self-leadership. When we are in positions where we are running our own companies, we are solely responsible for our own confidence and our own resilience. Nobody can take that away from you, but nobody's going to give it to you either. And so you've got to figure out ways on where you can find that yourself. Going live for the first time, that is huge, nerve-wracking, like super applaud yourself. And then do it again, right? Maybe you went live for the first month in a row. Amen, sister friend. Like, maybe you also have got yourself on the calendar of days where you are batching content. Amen. Give yourself the pat on the back, because you know what? We are developing the confidence to show up over and over and over again. And here's the next one, which is audience growth. We get so bogged down in the numbers that we don't even come back to this invisible win and applaud for this. Maybe 10 people joined your newsletter. Maybe 10 people said yes. Maybe 10 people that would respond to every single email that you sent out negatively, maybe they left the list finally. Heck yes. Maybe one person shared your post and said, "This absolutely made my day." Or, "Thank you so much for sharing this. This really resonated with me." Maybe you had a DM conversation that reminded you why you started, right? Or they shared you specifically to another person. This is how we build impact, my friends. And this is how trust builds over time. Remember, coming back to that audience factor of, I would rather have 600 people that are super, super engaged than have 600,000 people that I'm speaking into the void. And I don't have to have a viral moment. That is an invisible win. All those are huge for confidence boosting, for retaining people in your audience. Number 5 is consistency. Maybe you finally came up with a plan to show up, and you posted even when the reach was trash. Like, at one point, I had 20 people on my email list, you guys. And I sent out a newsletter every single week. Every week. Why? Because consistency mattered to me. Having a rhythm mattered to me more than how many people were on my list. And maybe the consistency is you wrote the email. You recorded the podcast episode. Sometimes I feel like this podcast doesn't matter. Sometimes I feel like I'm just speaking into the void. But I show up here now every week because I love to do this. And sometimes the consistency is what serves us, right? It's not necessarily putting stuff out into the world, but it's more so for us to always be working on something in your business. And I'll just say this too, when you are consistent, it doesn't matter how many days in a row. It's not about showing up every day. It's about when can your audience expect to hear from you. And consistency doesn't always look like results. But over time, it compounds like crazy. So having that consistency mindset and celebrating those invisible wins as you keep going. Like, maybe you're getting little sticky notes, right? And like putting it up there, like, this week I did this for 5 days in a row. Yes, you did, Queen. You sure did. And because we are the CEOs, that is self-leadership. And we need to be thanking ourselves. Number 6 on the invisible wins that we need to celebrate is mindset shifts. Maybe you stopped believing that your worth is tied to your revenue. That is a huge one for me. I used to think the more clients that I had, the more money I was making, the more I was successful. And what I realized was my worth was being tied to how many hours a day I was working. My worth was tied to how many clients I was serving. And it didn't feel good. Not good. Not at all. So if you are working on reducing the thought of my worth is tied to my money, that is a huge shift. Because we oftentimes, if we come from corporate, if we come from jobs that, showing up meant that we were getting paid, that transitions into working for yourself. And if we don't release that, that is something that will haunt us in our business. And ultimately, our business won't be profitable. because we're tying our net worth, we're tying our individual worth all to what our dollars say in our books every month. So releasing that, if you've gotten to the point to release that, that is huge. If you haven't quite gotten there, make that a priority this year. So maybe you gave yourself permission to rest without the guilt. Hello. Can we say that again for the people in the back? Who, show of hands, who has said, you know what, I am going to do absolutely, quote unquote, air quotes, nothing and not feel guilty about it? You know what will help you not feel guilty about it? An ACL injury. Yep. Where you have to sit in a chair and move limitedly. Yep. It's been 6 months since my surgery. And I will share with you that giving myself permission to rest without feeling guilty. Like, I was born and raised in a family that you didn't sit and rest until, like, Papa sit down and rest. You know, like, once he was turned in for the day, you could be turned in for the day too. Otherwise, you're up and working. And so that's been ingrained in me my whole entire life. So going through this period with my knee has really been eye-opening. But I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, yes, I deserve to rest. Why? Because I'm building a business. And that is not for the faint of heart. So maybe you're there too. And if not, get there. But also maybe you stopped comparing your day 20 to someone else's year 5. Hallelujah. Can we talk about the highlight reels that show up on Instagram? Because that is someone's year 5. Maybe they didn't talk about the first 5 years. And now what you're seeing is year 5, but you think that on day 20, you also need to be there. But if you have stopped all of that, that is a huge win. Because again, it's coming back to this CEO mindset of self-leadership. You are responsible for everything that you take in as a CEO. But when you do these small little mind shifts, that invisible work, that's the invisible work that transforms everything else. That has you showing up so much differently in your business. And number 7, so let's go back 1 through 6. Number 1 was systems and automation, right? That's an invisible win. Clarity and boundaries. Heck yes, man. Number 3 is confidence and resilience, with number 4 being audience and growth. 5 is consistency, and 6 is those mindset shifts. And number 7 is this idea of reputation and relationships. Did someone refer you to someone else? My heart, you guys. There is a reason why I haven't been on Instagram, partly because I don't love it, but also because, like, my business doesn't thrive on showing up on social media. My business thrives on other people that work with me independently, that love the results, and they share that with someone else organically. I don't ever ask someone to refer me, ever. But I'm so entirely grateful that I did, and I celebrate them, that they have recognized that they have gotten to the point of the business where they're like, yes, this is what I needed. That they have been so gracious enough to refer me like that. It makes me tear up. It lights me up inside. Because maybe it is just that they have said my name in a room that I wasn't in, or on a Zoom call that I didn't show up to. But with those little things, like, we need to celebrate those because you're becoming known, not for your hype, but for how you show up to other people. And that is the biggest win. And your reputation is a form of capital. It doesn't always show up in your income report, but it will always show up in your opportunities. So now we're probably thinking to ourselves, okay, great, Kelly, I get it. But how do I actually see these wins when I'm in the middle of the grind? Let's talk maybe some tools. And you're going to hear something that I repeat every single time. Are you ready for it? Journaling. Journaling. Maybe it's at the end of every week. Again, getting back to the client that I was like, maybe our Fridays need to look a little bit different. Maybe we are putting some more admin time on Friday. And maybe that is the first thing that you do in your CEO Power Hour is you write down 3 wins that had nothing to do with money. It could be I showed up even when I was tired. I finished setting up my new client workflow. Someone told me my post helped them feel seen. Right? Like these are the kinds of things we forget to honor, but they so deeply matter. They matter to us. They help us keep going. So maybe it's journaling, my friends. And because I also talk about this, is your monthly CEO debrief. A 20-minute, 30-minute date with yourself every month where you ask yourself these 3 questions. What felt easier this month? What did I handle better than last time? Where did I grow, right? Mentally, emotionally, or energetically, physically? Where did I grow? And you'll be surprised what comes up when you zoom out. But you have to ask better questions. We're trained to ask, how much did I make? And quantify all of those things. But better questions sound like, what did I learn this month? What's working, even if it's slow? Where did I lead myself well? Because all of these better questions reveal better data. And this last one is powerful. Share the process. Share it. Start talking about these invisible wins publicly. Because you know what? That's how we turn the tide. And again, when you're feeling like you're speaking into the void, I want you to come back and always remember that one person that shared your post or put it in their Instagram story of like, yes, queen, or whatever, like this resonates with me. But your audience connects more with your journey than your highlight reel. You don't need to pretend you've arrived. Let people in on the building process. That's how you become relatable and trusted. Like what then do we do when it still feels like nothing's working? Because this is the flip side of the coin. And I want to be honest. There will still be weeks where this all feels like fluff. You'll look at your bank account and you'll feel like you're failing. You'll see someone else's wins and feel behind. You'll wonder if you should just show up. I've been there. I have been there. So I want you to speak to that version of you. So I want you to let me speak to that version of you right now. If you were this person. Progress doesn't always feel like momentum. The valley is part of the view. And just because it's slow doesn't mean it's stuck. Sometimes the season that you're in is preparing you for something bigger. And I dare to say all of the time, the season that you're in is preparing you for something bigger. You're building grit, you're clarifying your offer, you're developing emotional resilience that you will need later. And if no one's told you lately, that's working. It's just not Instagrammable, but it's real and it matters. So if you've been feeling like nothing's working, I hope this episode is reminded you of one truth. You're making progress even when it's quiet, even when it's slow, even when no one else can see it. Invisible wins are still wins. So this week I'm going to challenge you to find 3. We're going to write them down, say them out loud, and celebrate them. Find 3 invisible wins. And if you want to witness them, if you want someone to witness them with you, DM me, tag me, put them in your story, right? I would love for you to celebrate your invisible wins too. You're better than you think. And you're becoming a leader in the way that your business needs. And trust me when I tell you this, your invisible wins are on the way. So send me a DM with what your invisible wins are for this week. I would love to have my DMs flooded with that. And I would love to reshare them and celebrate you as well. And until next time. Hey friend, thanks for hanging out with me today. If something in this episode clicked for you, I want you to shoot me a DM over on Instagram. The link is in the show notes. Let's chat about how you're making the messy middle work for you. If you loved what you heard, would you mind sharing this episode with a friend who needs to hear it too? And drop a quick review if you don't mind. It helps get the word out, and I appreciate it more than you know. Catch you in the next one.